Well, hello everybody to this wonderful issue of Balm. I believe it'd be something like 186 or something like that. But I should go and check that carefully. Either way, we've been going for quite a while, and we're delighted also that many of our regulars continue to join us and enjoy this amazing celebration of literature across the world. Hopefully someday in the future we'll include some alien poetry as well. In fact, I'm thinking we probably should do an alien poetry show. What do you think, Cassandra?
Why not? If you've got the contacts, why don't you bring them in?
Well, there's a couple of people on Mars, you know. Anyway, we are delighted today to have the Invisible Walls show, which includes Barrina South, Jake Levine, Emily Sun, Hyeong Ryeol, Peter Boyle, Anne Vickery, Autumn Ryeol, Kevin Brophy, Lee Sumyeong, Šime, Knežević, and Samantha Faulkner. Thank you so much for joining us here. And before we get started on the show, and also thanks, of course, to Amelia Walker for curating this fantastic show. But before we begin, as is per standard, Cassandra and I read a poem to kind of warm up the mic, so to speak. So here we go. And a little bit about Cassandra. She's an award-winning prose poet and international expert on prose poetry. Her prose poetry is widely anthologized and has been translated into Japanese, Chinese, and Korean. Cassandra has published more than 30 books and is currently writing an illustrated book of prose poetry on the Hiroshima Maidens with funding from the Australia Council and the Victorian government. Cassandra co-wrote prose poetry, An Introduction with Paul Hetherington, and co-edited the Anthology of Australian Prose Poetry. She was commissioning editor for Wesley magazine and professor of writing and literature in Melbourne, Australia.
Thanks, I loved your accent. That was really good. Yes, and I've just signed a contract with Princeton to write a second book, this one on ekphrastic poetry with Paul Hetherington, who I see is here as well. So good morning, PH. So I am going to read an ekphrastic piece based on the painting Beata Beatrix that has a long and complicated history. And here we go. If you elegize me, do it slowly. Don't write a pantoum one evening over a chicken curry or a villanelle on the train between suburban stations. Take your time. Compose a prose poem longhand in a notebook with a fountain pen. Buy an inkwell and fill it with pink ink. Let it stain your writing fingers. Set aside a few nights each month to put in commas and take out adjectives. Picture me in every metonym and alliteration. Imagine us inhabiting the spaces between words. When it's finished, don't publish it. Make a bonfire and watch the paper catch and burn, the letters taking off like hundreds of fireflies in the starless night. And I would like to introduce officially Mark Vincennes, who is an Anglo-Swiss American poet, a fiction writer, translator, editor, publisher, designer, multi-genre artist, and musician. He's published over 30 books of poetry, translations, and fiction, including more recently 39 Wonders and Other Management Issues, The Pearl Diver of Irun Mani with White Pine Press, A Splash of Cave Paint with Spite and Dival, and a chapbook, An Alphabet of Last Rites with Chavina Bava. The King of Prussia is Drunk on Stars is forthcoming in January 2024 from Lavender Ink. And later in the year, The Visitation, a novelette, is coming out with Sir Vision. Mark is also a prolific translator and has translated from the regulars, German, Romanian, and French. He has published 11 books of translations, most recently an Audible Blue Selected Poems 1963 to 2016 by award-winning Swiss poet and novelist Klaus Mertz. And it just won the 2023 Massachusetts Book Prize for Translated Literature. And Mark is freshly back from the ceremony with all of his medals and certificates, which is pretty exciting. His own work has been translated into many languages, including Japanese, Chinese, Russian, French, Italian, Romanian, Greek, German, and Icelandic. He's currently working on a novel entitled The Age of Occasions. Vincenz is editor and publisher at the brilliant Mad Hat Press and publisher of New American Writing. And join in if you're a regular and you know this bit. He's lived all over the world, from Brazil to China to Iceland to India. He was born in Matilda Hospital on the Peak in Hong Kong, but he now lives on a farm in rural Western Massachusetts, overlooking Herman Melville, Greylock Mountain, Melville's inspiration for Moby Dick, where there are more, and he changes this up every week, when there are more tyrant flycatchers, eastern whippoorwills, and yellow-crowned night herons than people. It still sounds like an incredibly idyllic place to live. Mark, will you share a poem with us, please?
Thank you, Cassandra. This is actually the title poem from my book that's coming out shortly with Lavender Ink in January next year. The King of Prussia is Drunk on Stars. And so we start. The King of Prussia is Drunk on Stars. Subtitle, Weltvernunft, or How to Hand on the Crown. Colonial Rose. Here's another one of those arms born from the heart of the empire. We had to sever it at the roots. Come what may, this face-to-face is endearing. Yes, outside these walls, you're all headed into the wilds, you wildebeest young folk. Here's to another round on the house. Open those books. Let us see all of your tracks and treasures, your tax evasions, your hyperventilations, your who you're in the no excavations. I drown in them, you say. But where there's a storm, there's a fair weather. The alphabet. Herds and herds of them, jostling and jutting, cranking and bonking, bust up but alive thanks to the birds. Where there's a will, eh? By the roadside, everything looks the same, but to look is not to see. We think this is so old, but it's all here. Something like night descends, and we see a vague specter crossing the path, enduring time. Tell me, you didn't just pull that one out of your sleeve. A sunrise never sleeps. In deep, deep in, knee deep, the deep infusion in the will to survive. Keep going. You're not even close. Throw your tropes into the ocean. I was with you once before I was you. All that malarkey of manifest destiny, a southern sunrise, I believe. The deep, a place of no respite, almost blind, much alive, and not stumbling or staggering in the dark, but vibrant in its own infinity. Oh, those strange crustaceans near the vent pipes, the spill of an interior earth. Don't trust the royal decree. Someone wants to know why you think differently, why you treasure your throne, why behind the grid everything comes so easily. The dysgenic twist. No idea behind which god you stand, frère. Imagine a sudden leap of faith bursting through the clouds, an incidental ray of sunshine, unless you left as I did, with the woman in the meadow and the stars divided among the seas, then dove in fathomless, eternally searching for their fragments. The untold truths. Heaven forbid I should hand you my successor. Your cling was unstable like things that fall out of water or water out of fish. You cling to a metaphysical substance, a word in the water, to the unfound, the unrecorded, the unpurported, all those theories based on loose evidence, or the momentary shift of alliances, the crowd-sourced field of daisies, buds in bloom, a beam of moonlight filled with fairies, a jungle colorized by Cézanne. The long look, it seems populated by sleek, unflinching sea lions, perched on the slippery rock of their choice, with seaweed or without. They conspire not, or did they, in their glossy, fatty, furry way, conjure with an ode of supreme silence? This I heard you say. It was existence. It's a jungle out there. all those realms of experience like a network of arteries, this one bigger than the last, or the course of the river, beginning at the source, the immaculate third eye, the crystal of wisdom, the untold held to account for all those woes, the fracture split halfway down the globe, the was and is, the where, the why are you claiming the age of reason, or the season, untold Decembers back in the kitchen of last summer, where the warming chimes of the wide open spaces were like kings of old. Thank you. And I'm now absolutely delighted to introduce you to my good friend, Amelia Walker, who has brought this whole show together. Amelia is a poet who lives and works in Kaurna Yeta, also known as Adelaide, South Australia. Amelia has published 4 poetry collections and 3 books of poetry writing activities for educational and community settings based on her extensive work as a poet in schools and with arts health projects. Amelia currently lectures in courses on writing and literary studies at the University of South Australia, and is managing a research project that facilitates partnerships between poets in different countries to promote intercultural learning and connectivity through the arts. And so here we are with the invisible walls, right?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much. And I do just want to acknowledge the Garnet elders, the owners of the land from which I'm zooming, and to pay my respects to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. Sovereignty was never ceded. This always was, always will be Aboriginal land. So yeah, I want to read from my new book that just arrived in the post a few days ago, Allergopoiesis. And I thought I'd pick the most quintessentially Aussie bogan poem in the book. It's called Perfect Front Lawns. Perfect front lawn. It mattered in the 1980s, at least in 1980s Australia, to my parents as first homeowners in a suburb where bees loved clover and I was always getting stung. Calamine lotion was my skin upon skin, a chalky holy water, ritual, penance, salve. It was my fault. Again, I tempted fate, trying to stand on my hands while my skirts became tense and my frilly white pink flags of uprise and surrender. I was defeated from the start for playing games good girls must outgrow. So I did. Grow, outgrow, when and how. All I remember is 1 minute, grass and bees, then the next, a wall, a window, and me inside, freckles paling, skirt ironed, sitting in place. I remember watching my father with his Victor mower, up, back, his movements as straight, as uniform as the once unruly turf was by Saturday afternoons, once he was done. I loved the mower's engine, vibrations through the floor. I loved going out to breathe in afterwards, cut blades and two-stroke. Sometimes, when Dad pulled the start chain, the machine just coughed or did nothing at all. Unlike our next door neighbour, he didn't shout, swear or kick, but something inside him would shrink, would crumble. These times made it even more magical when the chain worked, when the machine roared into life. How would it feel to start a mower with just one pull? That question was not for me to answer. Good girls do not grow into such things. I never mowed a lawn until, at 35, I fell out of good and into the necessities of life for a woman never married yet legally divorced from a long-term partner. I got myself a second-hand mower, unleaded, not two-stroke, but still with a pull chain, that raw, that thick petrol scent. I struggled at first to start the thing. Some days I still do, especially when the grass grows too long. For the 1980s are gone. I'm neither a parent nor a first homeowner. I work and survive like all of us do here in the outer suburbs where land is cheap and other things too. The neighbours' lawns are overgrown like mine, some scattered with car parts. My mother doesn't visit. She screws her nose, but I can breathe here. The long grass feels safe. And then some days when the sun is out and the bees at work, it feels good to pull my mower from the shed, fill her with petrol, press the prime button, and then I get a feeling like standing on my hands inside a flapping tent of skirts. Some days it even starts with just one pull. So thank you. Now I have been unfairly given all the credit for curating this, but there's actually another partner in the project, which is the amazing Dan Disney at Sumyeong University, who couldn't be here today because he's at the Ubud Writers Festival, but Cassandra is going to read one of Dan's brilliant poems.
I am. I would have loved to read his amazing award-winning Australian Book Review poem, but I'm afraid that I'll mangle some of the words in it. So I'm going to go with one that I really love called Nocturne, Melbourne Dusk, because for me, it really captures a moment. So this is by Dan Disney. The occupancy rates, more cradles immediately, up this shut-doored city of tram song and grey outpost, principalities, hammer falling and vacuum, guidebook flower beds daubed, keep out. Below, once upon a time, rain, the hysteria, bright as chandeliers in bones, the church bells hollow-mouthed on knolls, and swivel-chaired dilettante, dynastic in their clockwork minds. Do not fool with the light switches here. Utter in your best zen to the click, click, clicking of mortgaged heels. But I recommend that you have a look at Dan's work. Much of it is online. So back to you, Amelia.
Thank you. So I'm just going to share a little PowerPoint. Bear with me. So this is our project, Invisible Walls, Poetry as a Doorway to Intercultural Understanding. And as I did before, just want to acknowledge the Kaurna people as the traditional owners of the land from which I'm zoning. And now I'll give a little bit of project background. So we use poetry, letters and video conferencing between Australian and Korean creative producers to materialise and formalise an emergent network of shared skills, interest and creative energies. In 2022, we had 5 Korean and 5 Australian poets engaging in cross-cultural dialogue using the resources we provide, which include interpreters for Zooms and translations of poems. And in 2023, we've increased this number to 7, and we'll shortly be receiving the translations of the new poems they've composed and be publishing a special issue or a special chapbook of Cordite. So this is funded by the Australia-Korea Foundation and run in partnership between the University of South Australia and Sumyeong University. And the poets we have today are Barrina South, Jake Levine, Emily Sam, Hyeong, Peter Boyle, and Vickery, Ryeol, Kevin Brophy, Sumyeong, Šime, Knežević, Samantha Faulkner, and apologies, Šime, if I got that slightly wrong. The translations, unless otherwise stated, are by Ungui Chun for the English to Korean translations and by Jake Levine for the, sorry, other way around, what it says on the screen. So let's go to our first poet. Barrina South is a Barkhanji poet and storyteller. Her interest in writing life stories began in 2005 as part of her MA honours thesis, with a manuscript based on her research being a finalist in the David Junaid Poem Award. Her work has appeared in Too Deadly, Our Voice, Our Way, Our Business, among other places. In 2022, Barrina was poet in residence at the Chow Chuk Win Museum, University of Sydney, and created a series of poems in response to climate change. Barrina has spent most of her working career in the museum and arts sector. Now living in regional New South Wales, she is employed in the protection of Aboriginal cultural heritage across New South Wales. And I'll hand over to Barrina.
Thanks, Amelia, for that. Before I start, I'd just like to introduce myself, Nyai Barkhanji Wimpinja. And I'm coming to you from the unceded lands of the Ngambri Ngunnawal people, and I pay respects to elders past, present, and emerging. My first poem is called Oak Trees and Gum Trees. Modest conversations with interruptions, static, broken sentences, and silence. I ask her to read me 100 poems by 100 poets. She does. While tying crystals to my ankles, I sink. Like a ghostly shipwreck settled on the bottom of the ocean floor, slowly running out of breath, she lies with me. Amongst the shells, brim jawbones and coral, similar but different. Oak trees and ghost gums, northeast and southeast. The second poem I'll be reading for you this morning is Wirrawa, which is the Aboriginal word for Lake George, which is a lake nearby where I live. Respectfully, Yuma Wirrawa, filled from the rain, lost under the sun. Restricted flow, shallow, but with a deep history. Evidence suspended in the silt, pollen and ash work stone. Eagles circle, watching. Lake's large mouth calls, its tongue licks at the foreshore. Birrick sits, looking up from below. Carefully he waits for those who take what is not for the taking. Sorrow trees recline in the water-soaked reeds, weathered arms outstretched, beckoning to come sit, to heal a scarred soul or damaged heart. I sit, cradled by the woody arms, they whisper the message of peace, forgiveness, and love. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Barrina. Next, we hear from Kevin Brophy, whose latest book is This Part of the World from Melbourne Poets Union. His previous book of poetry, Look at the Lake from Puncher and Watman in 2018, won the Wesley Michael Wright Prize. He is a past winner of the Calibri Prize for an outstanding essay. Kevin's poetry has appeared in many Best Australian Poems volumes and many national anthologies. In 2021, he received an Order of Australia Award for his services to education and creative writing. And in September 2022, his second collection of short fiction was published by Finlay Lloyd. Welcome, Kevin.
Thank you, Vincent. Mark, I mean. Mark and Vincent.
Mark Vincennes.
Yes. I'm going to read a poem called Lake. The lake I'm talking about is Lake Barragu in the Great Sandy Desert of Western Australia, where the Walmajari people live and protect it. I lived with them there for 2 years. The lake is blue. Blue lies like a lake on the lake. Grass stands up wiry all the way to the blue lake. Everyone mentions the lake once or twice a day. It's a blue shadow on the mind. No one's thirst can be quenched there. The old salty tongue of the earth is in it. The sun peers down into it. The lake's face shudders under breezes. That whisper it makes along its edges leaves a slim rime of salt circling its blue dream. Red earth reddens as the day goes away. The lake lies low, like a child lying down beside a mother who talks to her of the lake and the last time they were there. And the second poem I'm going to read is about my backyard in inner urban Melbourne. Blackbird. The blackbird comes in the morning then again at noon to stand beside me as I water the garden and turn the soil. When friends tell me there could be several random blackbirds, I accept what they say. But this one comes back. It can't stay away because we know I'll kick up snails and turn out worms. When it drops out of the day's air to scratch in the dirt beside me, both of us content to accept a world where this is possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. That was stunning. And our next poet is Sumyeong Lee, who was born in Seoul in 1965 and graduated from Seoul National University. She received her PhD from Chung-An University's Department of Creative Writing for research on the Korean surrealist poet Kim Koo-young. She's published 8 books of poetry and numerous other books of essays and anthologies. She has received the Pak In-hwan Literature Award, the Contemporary Poetry Award, the Nojak Literature Award, the Lee Sang Poetry Award, the Kim Chun-so Poetry Award, and the Cheong-ma Literature Award. The citation for the Kim Chun-so Poetry Prize asserts that her work opens the possibility that linguistic renewal is not limited to language, but also a critique of the world and innovative practice. So please welcome Sumyeong Lee.
Thank you. Thank you, Amelia. I read my 2 poems. The first poem is 춘드라. 무슨 생각을 하고 있기에 생각이 방을 가로질러 가기에 똑같은 벽이 나타나는 걸까? 방바닥을 돌아다닌다. 방은 몇 번이고 잘못이 된다. 무슨 상점이 들어섰기에 나를 아랑곳 하지 않는 점원들과 내가 아랑곳 하지 않는 점원들이 점원들로 이어져 있고 이 구석 저 구석을 돌며 춘드라요. 점원들은 모였다 흩어지고 흩어졌다 모이고 점원들은 동선이 없고 서 있는 발목들은 다 담을 수 없고 떨어지는 곳마다 발목들은 차례로 살아날 것만 같았다. 여기서는 눈을 깜빡이지 않을 거야. 이제 나의 차례가 올 거다. 두 손을 모으고 나면 모든 차례들이 차이가 없어지고 나는 앞뒤가 없는 잉어들이 될 거다. 앞뒤가 구별되지 않을 거다. 무슨 한 바퀴를 돌고 있기에. 자정이 오고 있다. 자정이 오고 있다. 자정이 지나간다. 한꺼번에 적출되어 떠있는 건물들. 건물들을 차례로 세어본다. 건물이다. 머리를 벗어놓고 오가는 동안 누구의 것인지 알 수 없는 외마디 소리가 흩어진다. 자정으로 이루어진 복도는 마주치지 않는다. 일정한 방향으로 쓸모가 없다. 아무도 복도를 닫을 줄 모른다. 복도에는 일정한 간격을 두고 인질들이 서 있다. 인질들은 서로에게 배추를 던진다. 인질들은 두껍게 사라져 있다. 배추는 미동도 없이 명랑하고 배추는 날아다니며 상상이 흩어진다. 자정이 지나갈 때, 자정이 공통이 될 때, 자정은 가장 맑다. 누구의 것인지 알 수 없는 이파리들이 사방에서 파랗다. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lee Sumyeong. Your tones are just resonating in my mind. I guess someone will translate that for you sometime. But anyway, we are delighted to have Jake Levine, who's an assistant professor of creative writing at Sumyeong University in Daegu, South Korea. He has authored, co-authored, translated, or co-translated over a dozen books and serves as a series editor for the Moon Country Korean Poetry series at Black Ocean. He was a Fulbright Fellow, Korean Government Scholarship recipient, won both the Hattie Lockett Prize and Johnny Ray Harper Teaching Award at the University of Arizona, and was co-recipient of both the National Translation Award and the Lucian Strick Prize. He used to say he's from Tucson, Arizona, but he has lived outside the USA in Lithuania and South Korea for the last 12 years. And now he is not sure where he belongs, if he ever did. Jake writes poetry in English and Korean and translates from Korean to English. Welcome, Jake.
Hi, thank you for having me, Mark. And thanks to Amelia for putting this all together. The project, I just wanted to say before I begin, the project is the result of us having like conversations over Zoom, like a series of 5 or 6 conversations with a partner poet. And so Amelia went to great lengths to put that all together. So really, she did a really fantastic job. And my partner poet is Dom Sims. And Dom Sims is really interested in like cringe culture and like bad taste. And so this poem is like about bad taste and cringe culture in Australia and like my interpretation of that. And so it's not really characteristic of my work. And also one more thing is Sumyeong, who just read, she has a book coming out on the series that I edit in the United States called the Moon Country series. And I'm going to pop a link into the chatting box right now. If you're interested in the series, it's the only contemporary Korean poetry series translated into English. Sorry, it's 6 o'clock in the morning here. That's available in the United States and probably over the internet in Australia too. All right, I'll read my poem now. The poem's called Can You Hear the Thunder? Can you hear the thunder? Because tending bar with Aussies in England made me miss the sun. Tina Turner and Jimmy Barnes were singing Simply the Best at the Walkabout Reading franchise in 2005 when I walked out of my job. The first Australian girl I kissed told me she would never date a Yankee, which was okay because all Australians are convicts, my ex-fiance told me. And the reason Australia has such a low population is because the animals and insects are poisonous. I have 2 Australian poet friends. Is Dan Disney poisonous? Is Dom Sims a convict? And if you are a poisonous poet, if you are a convict poet, does that make you Australian? I wonder, if I went to Adelaide and drank a Castlemaine, would I feel at home? On my imagination telly, Crocodile Dundee and Bloomin' Onion Rings play Australian rules in an Outback Steakhouse. Steve Irwin is the referee. Though I do not know the rules to Australian rules, I think Kath and Kim just scored, and Nick Cave is more German than Australian. And does every sentence sound like a question now? Before you visit a country, it exists as a set of cultural cliches. And after you've been somewhere new, it feels a lot like everywhere else. But even though I've never been to Australia, I listened to Courtney Barnett's Avant Gardener, so I know. They also have asthma. and drink kombucha in Oz. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jake. That was amazing. And our next poet is Emily Sun, who lives and works on the unceded lands of the Whadjuk Noongar people in Perth, Western Australia. Her works have been published in various anthologies and journals, including Meanjin, Cordite Poetry Review, Australian Poetry Journal, Mascara Literary Review, Westerly, and Growing Up Asian in Australia. Her debut poetry collection, Vociferate, from Fremantle Press, was awarded a highly commended in the 2022 New South Wales Premier's Literary Awards and shortlisted in the WA Premier's Award. She's currently a PhD candidate at the University of Western Australia and the co-editor of Hello Keanu, a forthcoming poetry anthology. So please welcome Emily.
Oh, okay, sorry, it's really early here. I woke up, I just woke up at 4:50 a.m. So, yeah. Before I begin, I want to acknowledge the traditional owners of Whadjuk Noongar country and pay respects to elders past, present, and future. Okay, so this is my first poem, and the little asterisk there kind of refers to what tok pisin is, and that's just my play on the term tok pisin, which means pigeon English in pigeon English. If it blinds me, I'll learn Braille. If it paralyzes me, I'll learn to run. If it's terminal, cremate me. Do not resuscitate, increase the opioids. So if I die high, closer to the gods. No one has the words, so I keep on talking. Nothing spills out, but the clock keeps talking. Nasal tubes are masked when the tick-tock's mocking. We are strangers in this strange world, as a cosmic lounge of fear, some flight or flight response, no super saviors here. Xenu's out in Roswell, Nanuks in the north, Quendas swimming in the lake, Nirvanas and your corp. God is stop, please stop, breathe, count to 3, breathe, breathe. It's just a little sting, just a little digging, a crochet needle in my vein, jab, stab, stick in. O2 tank removed, the door's now sealed. In my neck, there's a thing, pick, line, bling. Let the infusions now begin. And when it does, there's nothing left, just talking, talk, and pissing. So the next one is called Zombie Brains Wanted. Brains dried out, homogenized tongue. I could see it lying there, the hollowed coconut on a Koh beach, frozen in temporal space. I need the right replacement for my fallout brain. The scoop they took out was a monkey's toy, stomped on at a full moon party by the research monkey boys. I want to be revived like a rotting raggedy ragdoll, restuffed with polystyrene pods and fermented wood chips, discarded synthesized improvements stapled in. I'd like an organic brain, virginal with happiness, essential synapses firing, but not too developed in the frontal lobe. I want the removal of doubt, German precision, Japanese hardware, but any type will do really, as long as there's a reset button, deletion of all memories so that it can function again.
Thank you so much. Next we hear from Hyeong Ryeol, who was born in 1954 in Sokcho and made his literary debut in 1979. Ko is the author of many books, including the poetry collections Frost Flower and Snow Buddha, A Mirror That No One Visits, Little Boy, A Fabulously Gigantic Bird, and the essay collection Silver Colored Fish and The Flower Bloomed in the Poems. In the year 2000, he founded the publication Poetry Review, including over 900 poems from other countries such as Mongolia and China. Additionally, he hosted the Korean Poets Literature Festival in Seoul. He was forcibly taken to the National Security Agency for questioning because of his anti-establishment poems and for poems that investigate issues related to coal mines in his books, Sumyeong at Night, I'm Not at the Erden Zoo Monastery, and Braille. He recently published the essays of Hyeong, Ryeol, and 7 poetry collections. Ko lives alone in the countryside. Welcome, Ko. Are you there, Ko?
선생님, 그 마이크 지금 해제예요. 그 밑에 뭐 음소거 아이콘 클릭해 주세요. Maybe Cassandra, you can.
Thank you very much. 됩니까?
예, 잘 들려요. 예.
한 아이를 따라감. 고형렬. 삭풍만 불어오는 길을 한 아이가 모포 한 장처럼 걸어간다. 아, 비릿하고 모질다. 나의 시는 다시 모욕을 뒤집어 쓴다. 밤의 신이여. 그 헐벗은 아버지는 다시 그 소년이 되고 그 헐벗은 어머니는 다시 그 소녀가 된다. 허물어진 벽, 구멍 뚫린 아파트, 지붕이 날아간 학교, 끊어진 다리에 지옥의 하루가 서성인다. 황야에서 하나의 불을 지펴놓고 둘러앉을 수 있을까? 눈을 마주 보며 우리가. 어둠 속 아이의 그림자 하나가 사라지려고 이 세계의 중심에서 펄럭이고 있다. 이 순간도 새로운 윤리와 강령, 조약과 양심이 필요할까? 내일이 밝아온다. 인류에게 남아있는 기도가 있을까? 아이들의 영혼이 흔들리는 그곳에 잔과라도 남아있는가? 그 먼 곳에서 계속 시는 써지는가?
Thank you. That was absolutely amazing. And next we have Hyeong's partner poet, Peter Boyle, who is a poet and translator of poetry. He has 10 books of poetry published and 8 books as a translator of poetry from Spanish. His most recent collections are Ideas of Travel and Notes Towards the Dream Book of Endings from Vagabond Press. In 2020, his book Enfolded in the Wings of a Great Darkness won the New South Wales Premier's Award for Poetry. His book Ghost Speaking also received the New South Wales Premier Award in 2017. He's performed his poetry at international poetry festivals in Canada, France, Colombia, Venezuela, Macedonia, Nicaragua, and El Salvador. Please welcome Peter.
Okay, I'm coming to you from Darug Land in southwest Sydney, and I'll read 2 poems, or 3 poems actually, but they're all from the sequence called 5 Companions, and very short. The first one's not on the screen, or maybe in a different order. Anyway, Small Spider. Next to the strawberries I am cutting on the kitchen counter, you step out, intent on exploring the world. Gladly I leave you your portion of the visible field and the privacy of your millennial appetites. Already the first day of summer is carving a space large enough for both of us. 2 raindrops. I am wearing a necklace of raindrops, more judiciously rounded than teardrops, moulded into shape by the greater gravity of earth and the sky's overburdened need for equanimity. And when I come back inside, raindrops linger for a while along the windows to sign their disappearance with random streaks. I cannot hold on to a single one of them long enough to recite even a short prayer for their death. Gazed at for the moment of their being, they each have the perfection of utterances the sky makes for the lowliest of creatures, the slug, the ant, the caterpillar, the grasshopper, and for the outstretched hands of leaves, also waiting to fall. And the next poem, My Distant Brother. Light, like water, is a strange creature. Suddenly, when I thought the day could do nothing but steadily get colder, light appears, stepping beyond the trees that seem to block it, to become a presence all along the front windows of my house. Then I notice it has already stepped inside and is now inhabiting a small oblong stripe on the wooden floor. A moment later, it settled into a glittering half presence, but gently laps the patch of carpet at my feet. Of all the creatures I know, it is the one I least understand. I could call it willful, as so it seems to me, but it also strikes me as the most solemn of life's companions, though not without a distinct flair for playfulness. And now it turns firm and resolute, holding the scratch marks and spider webs of my east-facing windows in a steady embrace. I think it must be the sole creature whose only instinct is to give. At the same time, I am loath to talk about light too much, for fear my words might be judged ill-considered, and it would turn its back on me forever. Yet, over and over, since my first days, my heart rises to meet it. It surely knows I want to follow it. Somehow I trust that we are kin. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Peter. And next we hear from Anne Vickery, who is Professor of Creative Writing and Literature at Deakin University. Anne is the author of 3 poetry collections, Bees Do Bother, An Antagonist's Care Pack from Vagabond, Devious Intimacy, and The Complete Pocketbook of Swoon. She's also the author of Stressing on the Modern Cultural Politics in Australian Women's Poetry, From Salt, and Leaving Lines of Gender, A Feminist Genealogy of Language Writing from Wesleyan. Anne co-edited Poetry and the Trace from Puncher and Watman, and co-authored the Intimate Archive Journeys Through Private Papers from the National Library of Australia. She has been editor-in-chief of How To, an online journal of innovative women's poetry and scholarship, and poetry editor of Puncher and Watman. She is currently series editor of Palgrave's Modern and Contemporary Poetry and Poetics. Welcome, Anne.
Thanks very much, Mark, and thank you to Cassandra for running Lip Balm, the fabulous series, and thanks also to Amelia and Dan for organising Invisible Walls. I'm speaking from Wurundjeri country today, and if we go to the next slide, my first poem, if we can get to it. Sometimes it takes an age to reach. In this poem, I was exploring aspects of dementia and intergeneration sort of relations. Sometimes it takes an age to reach. Each day you walk across the bridge, You cannot answer questions around what might lie beneath, whether trolls or transport. There is the probability that the street will join with another. They will lead past the Housing Commission flats, past the milk bar and reach the park. The repeated pattern, each day a comfort starter, in later days a little strange. A time where you might have to take a wild guess, sometimes a hunch. The milk bar, now a falafel bar, the park harder to find. Californian bungalows becoming boxes, ticky-tacky all the same. You remember a story about a girl in red who just kept going. She was not afraid of the path less red. Each day you walk across the bridge. Each day you ignore the cars below. You walk past the Housing Commission flats. You walk past the milk bar towards the park. You occasionally recall that wolves might hide behind fences. Sometimes forget the girl's name, the one less red. Each day you walk, green also turns brown. The sun sometimes too warm, strangers afoot. Sometimes the girl will join you across the bridge, past the Housing Commission flats, round the park to the milk bar. Each day you walk, you seek to bridge the pass and hunt for the park. Sometimes the girl is your daughter. You cross the bridge that lies between you, walk past the Housing Commission flats, past the milk bar, and find the park anew. And the second poem is Westfield Teal, with Teal referring to a sort of political sort of party that sort of was neither right nor left, that changed the course of the Victorian elections last time. And Westfield is the shopping centre. Hold out your hand. The state is laggy with acrylic glove. Aspiration as the engine of each inner Karen, her smashed mortgage morning, complete with inedible toast and concrete slabs. Cancel the air, sprawling distress, decorates the uniform for Micah. A question of heat tabled in food court carousel. I was once an average voter too. Now a trickle of belief the overtired tackling toddler demands. No one believed you when you said, the sooner we get there, the sooner we get there. Currency lad drowns the piebald day with a hose of thickened sauce. Next doors is already retweeting a care emoji, while a street of homes fall just north of the car park to hero gullets and the April floods. Thanks.
Thank you, Anne. That was fantastic. And next up, we have Autumn Ryeol, who creates poetry, drama, and criticism on unceded Wurundjeri land. Autumn is an arts worker and the interviews editor at Cordite Poetry Review. Her poetry collections include She Rose and Woke, Liquidation, and The Drama Student, which was shortlisted for the 2023 Queensland Premier's Judith White Calanthe Award. Congratulations, Autumn, and welcome.
Thanks so much, Amelia. Thank you to Invisible Walls, Amelia and Dan, all the other poets who have read, and also to Lit Balm and two very formative teachers out there that I'm privileged to be reading amongst. So I appreciate your support. Reading today from Wurundjeri country, and I'd like to pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. This poem is called To Be Consumed in Something Rather Than By It, with an excerpt from Evelyn Lau, A Moment's Unrecoverable Banishment of Self. In whatever era this finds you, I'm out of my depth. The more I say I write poetry, the less I express it. And so in a container of water, I saturate my pages for tomorrow's absence. Inside the mist of living without death, there is the accumulation of living with death and the lure of drama, barbed assumptions. The only way it goes is drama, natural versus man-made injuries, as if tragedy allows for transferable roles and the glorious thrill of gorging on the banquet that is your own body. No one has ever wanted to consume me like this, and one must become composed when both guest and host. Heritage listed facades in the foreground, assemblies in the background. The common areas of the complex in order of appearance, the entrance, the hallways, several outdoor-facing windows, and the laundry. Letters to outline measures of permitted distances, as if adoration could be restricted. My account allows for building poems, not a house. So wipe a finger along the dusty plaster of a wall and rub the powder over your eyelids. If possible, leave your home during allocated hours and blink as a reminder you still own secrets and must harness the gift to lie. A circulated memo updates the limits of imagination before it falls into predictability or magical thinking. I am cushioned into pursuing experiences from written scripts as you ache in a prearranged room for a statement to be recorded after the accident. Your dry mouth craving for slippage. The fever of this scene heats like love, endless love, rumoured to be as expected as flesh. And since there were no physical injuries after the collision, you must form and sustain a narrative, a statement for insurance. I sit and visualize the rising and falling of your chest. My cruelty heaves as I relate such undulations to thoughts. Thank you. And the next poem I'm going to read is Posy. I love this excerpt by Asya Berg, which is, when people speak in favour of a life of madness, they mean the cute, nice madness, not the disgusting or the dangerous kind. The disgusting and dangerous kind is prioritised in language, but not in life. The dash between shelf and life. Why do you think I chose you? I'm a cornice, a decorated projection at the heights of desire, disenchanted and plastered for the sake of the walls. I'm off chops at a speed before murder was just a concept. It only takes a few minutes. I'm attached to the top floor, yet down-pitched as I mark virtue. I mark from a hospital bed. They strapped and pressed me as to why I needed care, in the car, in the kitchen, in the office chair. They question why I hugged the shaking man after the meeting. I beg them. I hoard. I am a version of editing archetypes and questioning why I'll never be an inborn model. I, opinion I, but I hope to mean we, while the deaf poet becomes me, as I pump petrol into my car, my vehicle, my mouthpiece. I lie down on a couch and complain about not having a couch. Yet I promised to be static, happy to live in the shed, knowing it's further than what's expected. I'm threatening with my passivity, dissolving fizz, formerly still now. The crudeness of a rubric. I mark essays, I mark essays, I mark essays, I mark. I am a mark. I am marked with deadlines. I mark a high distinction when all I need is credit, feedback with no response, and just for beads. Trying to investigate meaning and watering soil with spite. It only takes a few minutes for the organs, the mud, and the handlings of conversations about the sours of milk, found, smelt, and drunk. Thank you.
Thank you, Autumn. Next, we hear from Kevin Brophy, whose latest book is In This Part of the World from Melbourne Poets Union. His previous poetry collection, Look at the Lake, from Puncher and Watman in 2018, was awarded the Wesley Michelle Wright Prize for Poetry. He is past winner of the Calibre Prize for an outstanding essay. His poetry has appeared in many Best Australian Poems volumes and major national. Yeah.
Mark, I think we've got Šime next.
Oh, really? Oh,
Yeah,
sorry.
is that what's on the shared screen?
I was looking at the Word document.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
I will revise. Let's start again. Sorry. Šime Knežević is an Australian writer, poet, and playwright. He was born in 1985 to Croatian parents and lives in Sydney. His debut poetry chapbook, The Hostage, was published by Subbed In. His poetry has appeared internationally in Ambit, Australian Poetry Journal, Cordite, Poetry Review, Island, Magma, Mean Gin, Overland, Sand, and elsewhere. He has given live readings of his work in Sydney, Newcastle, Belfast, and London. Šime holds a Master of Arts in Creative Writing from University of Technology, Sydney, and is a graduate of the NIDA Playwright Studio. In 2019, he attended the Seamus Heaney Centre for Poetry Summer School at Queen's University in Belfast.
Thank you, Mark, and thank you, Amelia. And I'm coming to you today from the unceded lands of the Gadigal and Wangal people, and I pay my respects to elders past, present, and emerging. The first poem I will read is Blazon. Another version of me, up to my knees tall, sporting a chiffon kimono, hairier legs, tossing the sorrows of life as a yo-yo. His ears listened for the nearest free Wi-Fi signal. His eyes reflect a two-way mirror. His worldview is on the bright side. Call him Albert. He has built a safe house for you and him in the sturdy plot of earth between his shoulders, spritzed with new car smell and petrichor. He takes my love for karaoke, sings pitch perfect, and his air guitar hits all the right notes. His legacy will be a lesson in the art of homage. Here he is in his element, scoffing blueberry ricotta cheesecake with unbridled joy, fast as the runaway high-speed charge of a wild horse. In his head, the world rotates on its axis and returns to him. His body is temporary as a mood, and he tells his true story in one hieroglyph. And the next poem is Orbade. I find myself one more time escaping death. However, I'm yet to receive specific details from anyone above or below or otherwise. I should keep a solemn mood, but I feel light as Pavlova, and I want to sing in auto-tune the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles theme. For years, I left my body on default, operatively a post-migrant summary. My life followed the path of a Nokia 3310 snake, or I preferred the world as memorable and perfunctory as a hotel room. And now I slip out from hiding in all my yesterdays, somnambulant from room to nameless room. For years, I hated mornings, but now I love you. Your air crisp, your whipped oats with honey, cinnamon, your low humidity, occasional update. I'll keep my shoulders open the bits and pieces in my chest, give bear hugs to my loved ones. I pinch myself lucky, the feet in my socks sparkle.
Thank you, Šime. That was stunning, amazing. And now we come to our final reader before we go into the open mic. So this is Samantha Faulkner, who is a Torres Strait Islander and Aboriginal woman from Badu and Moa Islands in the Torres Strait and the Yadhai, Ghana and Withathi peoples of Cape York Peninsula. And Samantha, I apologise, please feel free to correct my pronunciation there. She's proud author of Life Belong Ali Drummond, A Life in the Torres Strait, and editor of Palme Torres Strait Islanders in Canberra. Her poetry and short stories are published nationally and internationally. She's a member of the ACT Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Arts Network, ACT Ministers Creative Council, and the ACT Writers Centre Board. She's a treasurer of First Nations Australia Writers Network and Usmob Writing Group. Thank you so much, Samantha. We are really thrilled to have you here.
Thank you, Amelia, and good morning, everyone. I'd like to acknowledge the Ngunnawal and Ngambri traditional custodians on whose country I live and work. Acknowledge all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people joining us today and our friends, supporters and allies. So my first poem is called Island Home. My island home lies far away beneath blue sky and ocean azure. Reflected beauty in its face, remaining a brief moment in time and space. Missing the scent of salt deep in my nostrils, warmth of the sun throughout the day, green palm trees scattered around, friendly faces I see in town. Winter is with me now, cold, crisp days and cooler nights, fog so thick, no sunlight, layers of clothes to step outside. I yearn to be there, my whole being aches. Refresh, revitalize, renew. I am there with you, my island home. And then this next one is Culture Strong, and it's about celebrating when we come together as Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people to celebrate our culture and family. I love it when we come together, celebrate our spirit, strong culture, strong people, bursting full of pride. There's aunties and uncles. Stop running, kids, you'll fall right into that table. Go outside and play. Bright and colourful, the men and women, tropical paradise on a Canberra winter's day. Plenty singing, island dancing, one strong voice echoes and rises up. We clean up, go home, satisfied, tired. Small yawa till next time. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So once again, like this amazing celebration, the invisible walls, the walls that have been brought down between Korea and Australia, but there are many more walls to bring down, of course. But thank you so much, Barrina, Jake, Emily, Hyeong, Peter Boyle, Anne Vickery, Autumn, Kevin, Lee, Šime, and Samantha. Thank you so much for this amazing show, and thank you, Amelia, for curating this. And I'm going to hand the mic back to my old friend Cassandra Atherton, who's going to guide us through the open mic portion.
I will. That was a wonderful reading. I loved seeing it on the screen as well. So thanks for the preparation of that too. And I think that there's no greater way than kind of understanding poetry than being part of a co-translation or a translation. It's really amazing. So I hope more people will do it and be inspired to seek out that kind of relationship with poetry. So we do have an amazing open mic. We are going to kick off with Dominique. So we'll keep the Australian theme going, Dominique, and have another person residing in Australia to open the open mic. So please.
Thank you, Cassandra. I'd like to read a little poem from Tracks. It's called The Expat Reconsiders. I'm back planting shoots in the back garden where every blade of grass switches off the sun. It's 2 faces in my scar, 5 languages I can't hold. Be my taxi, rank, seatbelt, duty, free cigarettes, boarding pass, landing card. I miss the crust of summer's baked board, crackle of cicadas, churn of the surf, the body's effortless holding of breath in a listless garden. Be my Charles Austin from bud to full-blown flower, be my hyphen. I watch seasons change, years go past. I grow thin and cold, sprout a growth, not quite a child, tend tough roses that catch their second wind without me knowing their names. My hair falls like autumn leaves, and the idea of me. Les feuilles mortes se ramassent à la pelle. Be my finger that pulls the trigger. Be my last breath. Thanks.
That was amazing. I could listen to you read your poetry all day. I love the crackle of cicadas. There is just so much in there. Thank you so much, Dominique. Next, we have the brilliant DeWitt. It would not be an open mic without the brilliance of DeWitt in his chair. DeWitt, what amazing, playful piece do you have for us today?
Am I on?
Yeah.
Okay.
Are indeed.
Well, some of you know, I'm an artist's daughter who makes shadow boxes. And when I did a collection of found poems from prose, she surprised me by interpreting each poem by her own free association. So this is a kind of, I don't know if you can see it carefully enough.
Gorgeous.
She just did this and said, okay, write a poem about it. So it's kind of going in the other direction from where we had been. This is called assemblage. A wooden shadow box, 3 sides lined with construction caution tape. Then bottom lined in astroturf on which, to left, a broken wristwatch lies face up and seems to burst gears from and back. 1 in midair on left, 2 emerging in front, another smaller on box's top outside, from which inside the thread holds 1 wing of a golden butterfly. Filigreed wings cut from foil, where the bottom of the opposing wing is anchored to the back of the watch. The slightest movement of the box sets fragile butterfly trembling, alive with shimmers. So in its right wing, 2 more gears appear ingrown. Caution, read the letters surrounding this scene, black type on yellow. Time flies. Or wristwatch out of time, casing cracks, hands break, face wears free, springs and gears dislodge. Even these, perhaps in some landfill, in time absorbed. You've seen the pics of rarity, the tree that grows through a shell of car. Man's ruins jungled, vined. Our traces become elements, and elements absorbed. Or perhaps we recycle the butterfly, for instance, the ghost of gears in fragile wings, its body golden metal, the artist's emblem of change, of transformation, and yet surrounded by caution, as if creations forget us. Or hurry up or slow down, please. Human time, machine time, flywheel, spring, pendulum, or digital blink merge in time with nature's measures. The chrysalis journey from caterpillar to butterfly, rebirth. However, danger in this threshold as nature absorbs tech. Theistic hubris, creator in eternity, nature, her clock. The art itself is nature.
Thank you. I think we should call that the butterfly effect. And I note Cindy's note about the Cornell shadow boxes, which are some of my favorite, especially as a prose poet. So amazing ekphrastic play, DeWitt. I love that, going back and forth with your daughter. Next, we have Philip Belcher. He's going to give us something extraordinary, and he's back from his books of philosophy to give us some poetry.
Thanks. It's great to be here, and it's really great to hear all these wonderful poems tonight. So thank you, Amelia and Mark and Cassandra and everyone who read. This is a short poem called I Watched My Father with Parkinson's. I watched my father with Parkinson's exercise on his porch bed. He sits up and balances on his hip, tongues a gumdrop from the jar, and rolls it like Sisyphus into his mouth. This way, no one sees the anarchy of his fingers. On the stand beside the bed, a spill-proof cup and a comb. My mother pulls a brush through his hair. The white strands caught in the bristles tremble with the breeze from the screen and begin a long wave. Goodbye.
Oh, Philip, only you can write like that. That was achingly sad and very beautiful. I love the tongues a gumdrop from the jar and it rolls like Sisyphus. What an amazing moment. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that. And then we have our final two in the open mic, our duo that we cannot do without. Cindy Hockman, badass Brooklyn poet, is about to delight us with something, no doubt. Cindy, what have you got for us?
Oh, I've got a treat for you.
Oh, wow. Hang on. You're a cat this week. A very saucy cat.
The whole outfit. I'm running a cat house here. Anyway, I'm going to read a collaboration with my dear friend Bob Heeman, who did the covers for our collaborative chapbook. The number 5 is Always Suspect. You could all see his amazing cover. And it happens to pertain to Halloween. And I don't have a lot of Halloween poems, so I decided, of course I asked him permission because I never do anything without asking Bob's permission. So thank you. It's number 23 in our book. On All Hallows Eve, the poets dress up like poets and try to imagine they are nothing more than forgotten owls, hooting and hollering their wise words from the branches as they watch the black cats disappear into the underbrush. The poets dress up like Edgar Allan Poe, then put on owl heads to scare the dreamers. But the experimental poets refuse to be owls, preferring instead to dress like algebraic equations. Oh, don't try to figure out the calculus of poets. Too often it's no more than barn plus 5, and algorithms of darkness in an infinite limit, with the only correct answer a smaller circle. On All Hallows Eve, the poets don't need masks. Their words can hide them or reveal them. And we wrote that before the pandemic, so the mask didn't have
Well, masks are part of Halloween too.
Halloween.
That's it. And the good old Mask of the Red Death if you're going to go into Poe. I loved that. Poets dressing up like poets is great. I recommend we all do it. Bob, from your kitchen, what have we got? I always say that whatever you end with is what I begin my day with. So I'm very much looking forward to what you're going to give me to think about for the rest of my day from your glorious kitchen.
I was also thinking of Halloween, but I'm going to read this from my book Demographics. Fear. In the abbey where the monks died. In the river that had no bottom. On the mountain that was always filled with shadow. In the jungle where the plants spoke. In the factory where a second cellar was discovered. In the shop where they sold the shrunken creatures. On the road that tilted strangely. In the book that had extra pages inserted. on the clock that was filled with the wrong numerals, in the stains on the coat hidden under the bed, behind the picture that showed nothing but wall, inside of the car buried beneath the house, beneath the trees that seemed wrongly arranged, on top of the ground where no one could sleep, inside of the air they were unable to breathe, all over the surface they refused to touch.
And that's how you end an open mic, when you're Bob Heeman and you're awesome and you leave me with the most uncanny of days, I think, with all of that. Thank you so much, Bob. I love now we get a kind of background of your wall and your stove rather than your dishcloth and your pans. I'm sure the lip balm regulars will get used to that. So back to you, Mark.
And the refusal to touch, of course. Once again, thank you so much, Amelia, Barrina, Jake, Emily, Hyeong, Peter, Anne, Autumn, Kevin, Lee, Sumyeong, Šime, and Samantha. Next Lip Balm show is November 11 with the eminent critic and wild epic poetry writer Mark Scroggins, with Norman Finkelstein, Roxy Power, the amazing performer of poetry, Abby Kopang, and the amazing Uri Rosenshine, whose first book just came out with Mad Hat Press. So join us for that, November 11. And to conclude, here's a little poem that I translated from Klaus Mertz, which came out in Audible Blue. It's called Mother Nature. There were days we wore our trousers inside out to outfox the lightning, who we knew wanted to smack that bad boy straight in his tight-lipped mouth, all at Mother Nature's bidding. And I think we know whose tight-lipped mouth we want to smack at the moment. Thank you all for a wonderful reading and lots of love and poetry. And we'll see you November 11, if not before. Thank you. Lots of love. Bye.